What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This right here, as you all know, is the podcast where we dive into the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's REXXX. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Raw Jr. That's right. You are looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got 1 million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Boppa Loo Boppa Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Ooh, I am feeling good. And of course, more importantly, I am looking good, as is everybody in the house, including you all out there. For me, there's only one thing that helps me get the quaff like Roth. Boom! Right there, kids. Use it, love it, live it. And maybe you too can look this good. Maybe. Doubtful, but maybe. After all, I am a glamorous frontman. Second greatest to ever do it. Coming to you as always from the Lavender Lounge of Love. This is where it all goes down. Believe that. And joined as always by the great Keith Hernandez Puppet. Number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. You know him. You love him. He's a fucking legend. Together, we are bringing you the No Frills podcast. You don't get frills, but you do get rock star size thrills, and that's looking at me. And if you are looking at me right now, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow Pod Scum on Facebook, and be sure to follow a new segment on the Pod Scum channel called Pod Scum Presents Off the Couch Boxing. Just put up the inaugural first episode, and it is good shit. Views, opinions, hopefully some potential guests on down the road. It's in the embryonic stages right now. It is with my twin brother, Rex Ruger 2.0, and his son, Frank Benji's. They will be discussing their self-proclaimed unique expert analysis on all things concerning the knuckle game. That's right, the fight game. And very good stuff, high-level entertainment, quality programming. That's all we bring you here on the old Pod Scum Network. And our guest is here, and I'm excited about this one. This is a big one, believe that. So let's get down to it and chop it up with him on Pod Scum. I'm pumped. Wow, I got to say, Keith Morris, I am honored. Absolutely honored.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Can you hear and see me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sir, first of all, I got to say, a true honor. I've done almost 160 of these episodes, and I got to admit, this one got me a little intimidated. I mean, you know, you are punk rock royalty in my eyes, sir. So, I mean, I appreciate you doing this. A real honor to have you here. Of course, for people watching that have lived under a fucking rock, at least when it comes to the punk rock hardcore world for the last, 40 years, however long you've been doing it. Keith Morris should need no introduction. Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Off. First of all, how are you, sir?
I'm a little bit beaten down by this weather in Los Angeles. I think it's about like I think it's like 91 degrees. Normally, I have a little bit of a breeze blowing in my big front window, and the breeze is non-existent.
Yeah, well, I'm in upstate New York. It's pretty hot here, man, for this time of year too. I want to jump right in and ask you, what was your foray into this whole punk hardcore scene? Was there an album or an artist or a particular song that resonated with you that kind of got its hooks in you early on?
No, because I listened to all different types of music, and I was just paying attention to what was happening at the time. You know, we're in the 70s. We're being bombarded with Fleetwood Mac. We're being bombarded with the Eagles. Like, you go in any record store all of that stuff is going to be the first stuff that you see when you walk into the record store. And the same applied to whenever you turned on the radio. And it was just, is there something else? You know, we some of us were listening to the glam band. Some of us were listening to heavy metal. Some of us were just listening to rock and roll like ZZ Top and the Rolling Stones and
right.
Faces and Humble Pie. You know, it's a lot of people think, well, you're in a punk rock band, so
yeah, it's all you listen to. Yeah,
you know, and it's like, don't pin me down. Don't point your finger at me and say, hey, you're this and you're that.
Right.
And none of that. I'm angry, and I love the anger that happens in punk rock. I love the snarl, and I love the pace of the music. It just, you know, gets you going.
Sure. Yeah. A very interesting thing when I was getting my notes together, my bullet points and stuff that I wanted to talk to you about. When you were young, your father owned a bait shop, and how ironic though that he was friends with Dez's father. Small world.
Dezo's dad started out as a jazz producer on the East Coast.
Right.
And they moved to the West Coast. And my dad and Dezo's dad sat and smoked cigarettes and drank coffee every morning at the foot of the pier.
Yeah.
And that was probably my dad was a big jazz fan. My dad played drums. My dad actually sat in with Elvin Jones, who is,
wow,
when it comes to that world of music, he's normally the guy that you pick out. He's the guy. He's played with Coltrane. He's played with Ornette Coleman. His list of accomplishments is 8 miles long. Anyways, they were jazz bows, and they happened to be sitting at the foot of the pier. They were a minute walk from a prominent jazz club on the West Coast called the Lighthouse. And everybody played there. It was just, you're in Los Angeles, chances are you're going to play 2 or 3 different clubs. Now, these jazz clubs, they're not big places like if you go to a rock and roll show where there's 3,000 people or there's 500 people. These jazz clubs, they're really quaint. They're
intimate.
Really in your face. They're really the type of room where you could be standing at the back wall and you would still have a great view of the stage.
Yeah. Yeah. I love those kind of shows. I still like those kind of shows now in comparison, as you said, to go into the big arena rock show. First of all, you know, you're getting the shit gouged out of you as far as your money when you go to these shows. But I mean, there's something about the intimacy in the, of a club setting and that communal exchange of energy. I really love that setting.
Well, I happen to be in a band where we go to Europe and play festivals where we'll play in front of 1,000 people. We'll play in front of 10,000 people. And the next night or a couple of nights later, we could be in a room playing for a couple of 100 people.
Right.
And I like that going back and forth. I love the intimacy, but I also, and this is extremely important for bands that are traveling around the world, you got to play a couple of big festivals because your guarantee is going to allow you to get over there in the first place.
Right. And speaking of being in front of big audiences, I don't think a lot of people would know this though, but way back in the day, and I don't know if they were the band that we know them at now. And of course, if I have any of this wrong, you can certainly correct me on the dates or whatever. I believe this was sometime in the 80s. But you actually subbed for Anthony Kiedis and the Red Hot Chili Peppers at a gig at one point. I mean, we're talking about big arena rock acts right now. Were the Chili Peppers a huge act at the time that you did this? Twice you did this.
No, I did it once.
Okay.
And we're talking about a room that I've been told they've squeezed 10,000 people into this room. I personally don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I've played 2 shows in this venue where there were a minimum 4,000 to 5,000 people. Now, this particular night, the reason I hold up the 2 fingers is because the headlining band was Suicidal Tendencies, and there were probably a couple of thousand people there. This particular night was the Red Hot Chili Peppers' first big, what would be considered like an ultra mega show for them.
Like a coming out party.
Yeah, like they, before that they played the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is 300 people. They played the Roxy, which is, 300 or 400 people. They'd been playing around town, and they'd be playing in all of these smaller rooms. And now here they are playing on a bill with the Minutemen, SSD Control from Boston.
Yes.
Suicidal Tendencies, big punk rock show. Anthony Kiedis is nowhere to be found. I'm completely out of my mind. I'm there to have a good time. I'm there to see all of the bands, and I'm hanging out with the Chili Peppers, and I happen to get my hands on some Hollywood Happy powder and also have access to their like 2 or 3 cases of beer.
Yeah.
And at that particular time in my life, I loved a chilled adult beverage.
Sure. And you've been very candid about that.
12 times 24, what have you. So I'm out of my mind, and they're pacing back and forth in their dressing room. Where's Anthony? Where's Anthony? Where's Anthony? If they keep chanting that phrase over and over, that question over and over, the inquiry over and over, he's just magically going to appear.
Yeah.
Like Dorothy clicking her heels. And their magic trick didn't make Anthony materialize.
No.
And we were told that he was arrested for jaywalking because he had an outstanding warrant.
Yeah. That sounds like bullshit.
I would later hear another excuse that seemed to be more appropriate, but I won't get into it. Anyways, Flea turned to me and said, "Keith, you've seen enough shows of ours. I happen to have become friends with Flea, who would eventually play bass in the Circle Jerks." Flea went through this period where he was fed up with Anthony and all of Anthony's drug antics and what have you. And Flea ended up playing bass with Fear. He auditioned for Black Flag. He played with the Circle Jerks, and he was great in the Circle Jerks.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite lineups of the Circle Jerks. But anyways, Flea turns to me and says, "Keith, can you join us on stage? We need a vocalist." And I'm looking at him, and it's like, I don't know how to say, don't know any lyric. Under a emergency flight path for the Children's Hospital here in Los Angeles. And the helipad right there, it's like a block from where I live. Anyways, I get up there, and I'm completely out of my mind. I don't know any of their lyrics. And I believe the lyric that I repeated all the way through their set was, "What you see is what you get." And the beauty of their situation was that Flea knew all of the lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's sang a bunch of the lyrics. And Shermdog, who was playing guitar with them at the time, he also knew the lyrics. So between the two of them, they covered about 90% of the lyrics.
Yeah, yeah. Which is good because the Chili Peppers, having seen them in concert myself, as great a band as they are, though, they certainly are like a band that's very loose. A lot of what you go up there and really go and appreciate of them, is that boundless energy and everything. So, I mean, I'm sure people must have still enjoyed themselves. I mean, I don't think you can really go see the Chili Peppers and not, have a party breakout, so to speak,
Well, another thing that you have to take into consideration was they were, I want to say, there was an opening band. I forget who the opening band was. And then the Chili Peppers. And then there were 3 or 4 other bands after the Chili Peppers. So it wasn't just about the Chili Peppers.
Right. That helps too. Now, when you look back on it, and as I said at the top of the interview, I consider you a pioneer, in the punk rock hardcore world in general, but especially out in that West Coast scene, which, I certainly, would give big props to Black Flag for really being, groundbreaking in that scene out there. When you look back at what you guys created with Black Flag, and in recent years, there's been dissension among past members or whatever. Are you able to look back with fond memories, despite everything that's going on right now? I mean, I know there's public dissension, lawsuits, stuff with Greg Ginn going on. But do you look back on it overall with fond memories, though, even despite all the horse shit that's going on now?
The problem that I have, and I try not to discuss this. I try not to think about it.
Right.
Greg Ginn and I at one point were like best friends.
Sure.
At the very beginning of Black Flag, it was he and I, and who all of the other guys that we went through 4 bass players. I was in the band for 3 years. Can you see my 3 fingers there?
Yep. Okay. Yep.
I was in the band for 3 years. We had 2 different drummers. We had 4 different bass players. We didn't start playing shows, like actually go out and play shows, until like our 3rd year. So Greg and I, we went through a lot together in the very beginning.
Right.
I never toured with them. The only time I toured with them was to get in the van and go up to San Francisco.
Right.
That's it. I was never a part of their go out and see the world program, where they would be in the van and they would be gone for 3, 4, 5 months at a time.
Right.
Playing anywhere that would have them or allow them to play.
Right.
The Circle Jerks did the same thing, where we'd go out on these tours and be out for a minimum 3 months, sometimes 4 months, come back with a couple of $100 and a big duffel bag filled with dirty clothes. And,
yep.
Wondering how we were going to pay our rent. The scenario with myself and Greg Ginn, like I said, I don't really talk about it. I don't really think about it. I am upset that he turned out to be the person that he turned out to be.
Sure.
I could sit here and go down a list of all of the people that he's burned, all of the people that he's ripped off, all of the people. I believe, I want to say that maybe his mentality,
Hold on, you got frozen there.
You know, so I don't. I've been sued by him.
I know.
You know, and I want to be bummed out about that because we did nothing to deserve being sued.
Right.
But that's just the way that it is. That's the way, you know, people in power, that's what they do. We're watching Donald Trump right now.
Yep.
A perfect example of a guy who never paid his bills and basically told everybody that he owed money to take me to court.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Does it hurt you because you are such a passionate, affable, positive guy, though? You know, when you look back on it, did you ever think, holy shit, what we started is going to end up at this? We're going to be, bitter as we get older, and there's going to be lawsuits and all this shit. Does it hurt you on any level, man, to think that these guys that you started this thing with, that this is what it's come to? Or do you just kind of look past that? That's probably healthier looking past it, as you said, not thinking about it.
How unhealthy could it be to just walk around harboring all of these
right
horrible thoughts?
Yeah.
You know, like this guy was my best friend and now he's my worst enemy. And it's like, get on with your life. You know, there's other things to be upset about. There's other much more important things to be upset about.
And after you depart the band, obviously, of course, he's certainly become a larger than life character, a Renaissance guy, appeared all over the place. But you exit. In comes Henry Rollins. What's your assessment of the Henry Rollins years? He took the torch from you. What's your assessment? And you might be on record of probably stating this already, man. But for people that might not know, what was your opinion of the Henry Rollins Black Flag years?
I saw the Henry Rollins Black Flag a couple of times, and I was floored. I walked away from watching them thinking to myself, why did I quit this band? It was so unbelievably powerful.
Yeah.
But you have skipped two of the other vocalists.
I have. Yeah.
I won't allow you to do that. I won't allow you to do that because I was replaced by Ron Reyes.
Yep.
And he was only in the band long enough to play maybe a couple of dozen shows.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't know.
Right.
He was not in the band very long.
Right.
He was in the band long enough to record the EP with the great cover. I forget the name of the EP. I should know it, but I'm 68 years old, and my long-term COVID brain fog has me not remembering a lot of the things that I'm supposed to remember.
Yeah. I deal with a lot of forgetfulness too, Keith, not to cut you off, but like my day job is in healthcare. I work as a nurse with the geriatric population. So I see a lot of confusion and forgetfulness. Not that you're there yet, but I do understand the forgetfulness.
Okay. Ron replaced me. The thing with Ron was Ron listened to a lot of like glitter glam rock.
Mm-hmm.
Ron was the New York Dolls guy, which made him perfect as a drummer in Red Cross. Just a sloppy drummer who could keep a beat. Just keep the song moving along.
Right.
So he was perfect in Red Cross with the McDonald brothers. When he quit, he was replaced by Des Cadena. And a lot of people will say that Des Cadena is the best Black Flag vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
Des Cadena wasn't a vocalist. And he made that perfectly clear to them when he joined the band as a vocalist. He's a guitar player. And what would happen with Des is he would get what Billy Stevenson, who also played in Black Flag,
yep,
called the gator. And it's like, well, what's the gator? Billy, what's the gator? That's what Des sounds like. That's what an alligator would sound like if it could speak, if it could sing. So anyways, I love all of the guitar players, because Des did play second guitar in Black Flag. But I love all of the vocalists, because they all brought a whole different, they were all coming from different angles. They were all coming from different places.
Right.
Henry was great. When Henry was great, he was great. But there was a lot of stuff that Henry did when he was in Black Flag that for me is just kind of, why did you do that? You know,
right.
Why are you singing that? But that's okay. Henry, a lot of people will say Henry, because Henry is on the bulk of the albums. If there's 20 albums, Henry was on 15 of them.
Right, right.
So everybody knows Henry, because when they would go to see Black Flag, they would see Black Flag with Henry.
Right.
And so everybody knows, like, you know, when you think of the Rolling Stones, you think of Mick Jagger.
Right.
When you think of Rod Stewart and Faces, you think of Rod Stewart.
Right.
You know, when you think of the Dead Kennedys, you think of Jello Biafra.
Yeah.
You know, when you think of the Misfits, you think of Glenn Danzig. You don't think about the other guys who were playing in the band. You think about Glenn Danzig. He's the guy up front. So the majority, the bulk of people out there, the Black Flag fans, know Black Flag with Henry.
Right.
I have nothing against Henry. Henry, his stuff in Black Flag for the most part was pretty happening.
Yeah. I agree with that too. And I am a fan of Henry, and I am a fan of a lot of stuff that Henry did, even post Black Flag. I really enjoyed the Rollins band. I've been to see him do his spoken word gigs a couple of times or whatever. So yeah, I really do like Henry, and you know, certainly a different energy between you know, all the different singers. But I think that's what makes the legacy of the band so great. You know, is that you guys all did bring something different. Now, a couple of years ago,
the thing with Henry was he brought a real masculine thing to the band.
Yeah.
You know, he was like the tough guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy with all of the tattoos. He was the guy like, you don't fuck with me, I'm going to bust your head open with the mic stand.
Yep. Very formidable. Yep. Very formidable, intimidating guy. So going back a couple of years ago to 2020, if you can tap into that time, when everything kind of went fucking haywire with this COVID shit, how did that affect you? First of all, did you get COVID, and any plans or anything that you had going on in your life? Did that derail a lot of shit for you? Did that pull the plug on anything for you that you had going on?
What it did was, I'm in a band called Off.
Right.
And what that did was that just added 2 years of our 8 years off.
Right, right.
And there was nothing we could do about it. I mean, we probably could have gotten in a room together, but everybody, of course, would have to be wearing masks. And a lot of these rooms, like a rehearsal space that we would work in, Stephen McDonald's Whiskey Kitchen over in at ABC in Eagle Rock, it would have been, the climate in the room would have been brutal.
Yeah.
Even with air conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, when you're wearing a mask, it's just,
yeah,
it's inhibiting.
Yeah.
The scenario with COVID was, it was something unavoidable, although it could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I believe everybody pretty much knows where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And our, if you want to call him a president, I wouldn't call him a president. He had absolutely no business even being anywhere near the White House, had removed all of our safeguards from those laboratories over in China. And they knew what was going on in those laboratories, where they're doing experiments on animals. And, you know, there's all these different conspiracy theories as to how did it get out?
Right.
And the guy that discovered it was one of the first guys to die from it.
Right.
One of the Chinese scientists. But all of our people who were there to safeguard all of this were removed.
Right.
Like, well, the U.S. government is just too big and we need to cut back. And, you know, it was like those scientists, our doctors that were there needed to be there.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And of course they weren't. Now, the first conspiracy, we're kind of getting off track here.
That's all right.
I really liked this one. That they were experimenting on animals. They know that certain flus are carried by birds. Certain flus are carried by pigs. Swine flu. We had SARS, which they traced to camels, I believe it was. And so they're doing all of these experiments on all of these different animals, poor animals. Too bad the animals can't do the experiments on the
experiment back on us. Yeah.
You know, which fair is fair. But anyways, the person who was in charge of disposing of these animal carcasses, normally I would think you would just drop them in an acid vat.
Yeah.
Or you would cremate them.
Yeah.
And the character decided, well, hell, I need some extra money. I'll just take them down to the meat market.
Yeah.
Wuhan. You know, and that's where they seem to think that was where it came out of. Right.
Yeah, which is pretty sad and disturbing and disgusting, and all of those things all rolled into one. But so you yourself, did you get sick particularly with COVID though? Did you come down with it?
I was extremely fortunate up to a certain point where I was traveling in a vehicle with how many people got sick on our couple of the guys in the band, Xander and Joey, both got COVID. We were in Florida and we were with two other bands. Mr. Meat, who plays drums in Negative Approach, he got sick, but he's a big tough motherfucker. He got sick. He was sneezing and coughing and he ran a little bit of a fever and tested himself and he had it. And it was like, we had 2 shows left on that tour, and Negative Approach, the guys that they are said, we can't stick around. We can't play.
Right.
We can't bring Mr. Meat out of amongst all of these other people that are playing shows. So they turned around and they drove back to Detroit.
Right.
Which was very brave of them, very great of them. The drummer and the guitar player, I believe, in Municipal Waste, they got COVID.
Yep.
They, you can walk around having COVID and not know you have COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
And not have any of the symptoms.
Yeah.
You know, you could be Mr. Studley dude and not be affected by it.
Yeah.
But you could have it, which means you would be spreading it. And so they made it all the way through the last two shows. And then they bolted because a couple of them passed through. We passed through a new strain that was extremely easy to catch. You could be hospitalized. This strain was nowhere near as bad as the first strain.
Right. That first one was wiping people out. Yeah.
You know, and another conspiracy theory is that it was developed to eliminate our senior citizens.
Yeah. Well, I know from working in healthcare, it was doing a damn good job of that. Because I saw that firsthand. I mean, as I said, I work in a nursing home as a nurse. And I mean, literally months ago, we stopped wearing the mask, literally just months ago. So it had been the better part of 3 years. I mean, it had become a par for the course. It was like part of the uniform, putting on your scrubs, putting on your name badge, putting on your mask. I mean,
well, I made it through all of that. And Joey and Xander, they didn't catch that strain. They caught the first strain.
Yeah.
And Xander had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because he was having a hard time breathing.
Sure.
And his story was that he went out to a place in Glendale. They had him in the parking lot. Because all of these hospitals, what they're going to do is they're going to screen you before they even allow you to come into the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you've got COVID, they really don't want you in the emergency ward.
No doubt about that.
There are other people that are sick with other things and all of that stuff. So they had Xander out in the parking lot in a tent. And after about 3 hours, he said, "So what are we doing here?" And they said, "Well, we don't have any beds. We would have admitted you, but we don't have any beds. You have COVID. Here's what you need to do. You're going to spend the night here in the parking lot. The tent's freezing cold.
Yeah.
Who wants to spend the night in a freezing tent out in the middle of a parking lot?"
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah.
So he basically said, "Fuck this. I'm going home. What do I need to do when I get home?"
Yeah.
He said, "You need to be up at least once every hour, walking around, because you don't want it to settle in your lungs."
Yeah.
Because once it settles in your lungs, that's when you're through.
Yeah. That's when the problems start. Yeah. Yeah.
So he went home. He said, "I want to be with my cat. I want to have a television. I want to be in my own bed. You know, I want to have whatever food's in my refrigerator, in my cupboards."
Yeah.
Joey went home and gave it to his wife. And between the two of them, they gave it to their 3 boys.
Yeah.
And Joey, who's a stud, it took him like 3-4 weeks to get over it.
Yeah, it lingered. It did linger. Yeah. It was tough to shake it. It was tough to shake it. And now, does it affect you differently because you are diabetic and you're very public about your diabetes and everything, though? Did it affect you differently?
Well, I eventually got it.
Yeah.
But it was on another tour. We were on tour with Negative Approach in 7 Seconds. The guys in 7 Seconds, they all got it. Everybody on their bus had it. We're talking like 7 or 8 people. Their merch gal had it. She couldn't even get off the bus. She was that messed up.
Yeah.
Kevin Seconds had it, but he only felt bad for a couple of days. So all of a sudden he's off the bus and he's mingling with us. And I want to say I probably caught COVID from Kevin.
Yeah.
I want to be mad, but I'm not mad because I was going to, chances are I was surrounding myself with the amount of people that I was surrounding myself with and having as many people sick around me, I was bound to get it.
Destined. Yeah.
So when I got it, I had I probably had it for about a week before I knew that I had it. And what was happening was with each show we had played, I was feeling worse and worse. And the majority of it was just face gunk and a sore throat, which I would normally get anyways, passing through all of these different climates. At one point, we pulled up to a venue, parked next to the venue. I needed to get something to eat. As I was going to get something to eat, I noticed that there was an urgent care at the very front of the property. This big lot that we were, the building where we were playing was. This was in Burlington, Vermont, which is where Bernie Sanders was mayor and governor. And
he was.
So anyways, I get my lunch and I'm starting to walk back towards the venue. I noticed the urgent care. So it's like, you know what? Just on a whim, I'm going to need to go in there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need to take a COVID test. I need to get to the bottom of this. And right about the time I'm thinking about that, all of a sudden I have a pain in my testicles. Like somebody had just laid my testicles on an anvil and tried to crush them.
Jeez.
With a sledgehammer.
Which if you're a guy, you should know that's not fun.
I doubled over.
Yeah.
I was in so much pain. It was like I could barely breathe.
Yeah.
Oof. It was just brutal.
Yeah.
And then it was gone. Like it maybe lasted 2 minutes. And then it was gone. And it was like, what the fuck was that? But then all of a sudden my head is just like it felt like I got hit in the side of the head with the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm going in there. I'm going to have the test. And I went in. I had the test. I was there for half an hour. The nurse came back in. She said the doctor needs to talk to you. Then the doctor comes in. Then the doctor says you have COVID. This is what you need to do. And it's like, oh geez, now I got to walk back over to the venue because I had masks. I'm going to need to put this mask on, and I'm going to need to explain to our road manager that I have COVID. And I was extremely lucky because we, the night before, had stayed in I would call it a resort.
Yeah.
The building, the structure looked like it would be a ski resort up in the Swiss Alps.
Yeah. Nice digs.
It was amazing. It was incredible. It was like I couldn't have got sick in a better place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
nice
I had my own room at the very front on the second floor. They said, you just stay up there. Everybody in this building is going to be wearing masks, but you just stay up there and you only come out of your room when you need to come down here and get something to drink or get something to eat. But we can't have you hanging out. We can't be getting in any long discussions. We can't, be telling jokes and listening to music. That's not going to happen. You're going to need to, like, your quarantine is you staying in your room.
Right.
And I was there for 10 days. And what they were saying about this COVID at the time was after the 10th day, you're no longer able to spread it.
Right. Right.
You're no longer infectious. And that happened to be, I finally tested that morning on the way to the airport. It was time to fly home.
Yeah.
You know, you've been here long enough. And I tested negative. I still wore a mask going into the airport. It wasn't a very big airport.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I'm going to wear a mask. I'll wear a mask. I will be that conscientious to wear a mask just as a precaution.
Yeah. Which a lot of people weren't willing to do.
Pardon me?
Which a lot of people weren't willing to do when this was really running rampant. There were a lot of people that were kind of like, yeah, fuck this, mask, schmask. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? When it first broke out, there were people still down, at spring break on the beaches in Florida, acting like nothing was going on.
All of the deniers.
Yeah.
The situation with those people, they should gather in one place. There should be a giant party in one place. May it be in some remote area where when the nuclear explosion, the nuclear test happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect any of the outlying areas.
Right.
That's the reason why it lasted so long. And there's still pockets of it, just like there's still pockets of SARS.
Yep.
There's places down in South America that people are still getting sick from SARS.
Yep.
So I was sick for 10 days. It felt like, my lungs were sore. My throat was sore. I went through like 3 boxes of Kleenex.
Yeah.
I was coughing up gunk. My throat was sore because I was coughing so much, sneezing. I went to the hospital twice. Both times I got chest x-rays twice.
Yeah.
And both times the x-ray people and the doctors said, your lungs are so clear. It's like we've not seen lungs this clear in so long.
Yeah. And that's good because their main concern is it really setting in there and developing into possibly pneumonia, which would even be a step even in the worst direction.
Well, you have to take into consideration during the AIDS scenario, all of the people dying of AIDS were all dying from complications in the lungs.
Right. Yep.
Which is basically pneumonia.
Yep.
I have a really good friend. His name is Tito Lariva. Tito plays in a band called Tito and the Tarantula.
They're fantastic. Yeah.
Tito also played in a band called The Plugs here in Los Angeles. Tito sent me a recording at probably about a month in to the COVID situation. He sent me this recording that was on the coast of China. And she said, we've just started conducting autopsies on these COVID bodies, these people that have died from COVID. Normally what they do when they cut you open for an autopsy, they're going to split your lungs open to see what your heart looks like. They're going to cut you open to see what your lungs look like.
Yep.
And if there's any stuff going on there, they'll cut all of that open just to see what's going on the inside of those organs. And so they started cutting open the lungs because they knew people were dying of pneumonia. They were cutting these lungs open, and what they were finding is you have air sacs in your lungs. They were finding that all of these air sacs had been filled with a fluid. And apparently the fluid had hardened.
Yes.
So you can't breathe. That's how people died.
Yeah.
So she said, this autopsy thing had just started. She said, this is what we're discovering. So she gets through talking about all of that. And then she said, these are the precautions you need to take to just soup up your immune system.
Right.
She started off with magnesium, and then she said calcium. Both magnesium and calcium, you would take those to help you relax.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To help you at night go to sleep. They're calming agents. The first four things she rattled off was the magnesium, calcium, zinc for your immune system, and vitamin D3. And I lucked out because I had already been taking one pill, like a horse pill, that had all four of them.
Yeah.
When she was going down the list of all of these things that you need to take, she's also telling you the amount you need to take.
Right.
And it turned out that the pill that I was taking it was perfect.
Yeah. Like a multi.
I'd been taking that all along. Then she gets to vitamin C. And this is where it got really ugly. She said, you need to be taking doses, like mega doses of vitamin C, to the point where you could become ill. You could get diarrhea. You could be vomiting.
Yeah.
But this was recommended at the very beginning.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, and you'd only be doing this for probably a week or two, and then you would be bringing the dosage down because it's just not healthy for you.
Right. Right.
I didn't do that. I didn't do the C, but I'm now taking a C complex. But I had been doing that, and I'd been surrounded by all of these people that got sick.
Right.
And I wasn't getting sick. So I attributed my superpower being this pill that I'm taking. So I started recommending that to all of my friends. And I had friends that were just like, Keith, this stuff works really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I eventually got it, though it was inevitable because I was traveling with a group of people. And like I said, a good chunk of those people got sick.
Yeah. Inevitable is a good way to put it, because I think it was one of those things where you're only going to outrun it for so long. I've gotten to the point where I don't know anybody that hasn't had it. So, I mean, it's one of those things a lot like the flu. I mean, and you know what? You almost might be better off for getting it, because, I mean, this is how we build up immunities to things, though. I mean.
Well, they were actually saying that they figured on at least 80% of our population coming down with it.
Yeah.
Now, in the very beginning, I watched two specialists. The first guy I watched, he's basically a disease detective.
Yeah.
Who works out of the University of Minnesota. And he was responsible for tracing Lyme disease all the way to a group of moose and deer.
Yeah.
In a forest.
Yeah.
In like upstate Maine or upstate Connecticut. Like traced it all the way up there.
Yeah.
And so this is a guy that, specializes in all of these different diseases and how they spread and how they travel and how they move.
Yeah.
And he said, it'll take them a couple of years to even get a handle on this.
Right. Right.
To sort it out and figure it out and actually know what it is. Then the next guy I watched was a professor up at Stanford University here on the West Coast.
Yep.
And the government at one point put him in charge of all of the AIDS research. And he basically said the same thing that the other guy from University of Minnesota said, and that is, it's a pandemic. And normally with these pandemics, it takes them 1.5 to 2 years to sort it out.
You almost got to ride it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was the one that said, it's not going away. It'll always be around.
Yeah.
There'll be pockets of it in certain areas. He was also, I guess he was, not only did he spearheaded the AIDS research, but he was also called in when SARS was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. A disease expert. Yeah. I mean, a proverbial expert. I mean, no doubt about it. So when you tour now, with the diabetes, obviously with getting older in this business, are you the type of guy that can just still, jump up on stage and do your thing, or has the narrative changed in your life? Do you take different preparations? Do you do different things when you're out there now?
When I'm flying, because I've been spending a lot of time over in Europe.
Yeah.
When I'm flying, I wear a mask.
Yeah.
And just as a precaution.
Right.
Well, last thing I want to do is get sick because it's an inconvenience.
Right. Right.
And here we are on tour. It's like I can't stop a tour because, if I've got a cold or if I get a little bit of the flu or I'm not feeling well, I'm just going to drink more water.
Yeah.
And try to eat better and try to get more sleep.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm 68 years old.
Yeah.
Doing what we're doing, it's a very physical.
Sure.
It takes a lot.
Sure.
And it's not like our songs are where I can sing a line and I breathe and the music breathes.
Right.
Flowing and it's blossoming. It's like there's no time for that because we're just beating the shit out of everything.
It's very guttural. It's primal. It's in your face. It's nonstop. Yeah.
It's very staccato.
Yep.
Wham, bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
So that takes a toll. I've been home from Europe for, I want to say 3 days. I actually feel pretty good. I was not feeling very good yesterday, but I had a diabetic problem yesterday.
Yeah.
And
what happened? Did you drop too low or did you go high?
I very rarely go high.
Yeah.
I'm hypoglycemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're both just as bad.
Sure. In their own way. Yep.
And the thing with coming off of a hypoglycemic episode is I just feel like I've been beat up. Like I've been shoved into a dryer and been tumbled for 5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're a singer, obviously, people get up there with their instruments, and that's not to impugn what they do. But the human throat and the voice is obviously, what you use as an instrument in and of itself. Are you one of these guys that's really big into doing anything specifically for the throat? I know a lot of guys use these sprays, or they're big into teas or not talking after shows or this or that. Do you do anything specific that's voice related?
I've got to eat.
Yep.
I've got to have the fuel to do all of that.
Right.
I do drink tea.
Yeah.
When either of my bands are on tour with Negative Approach, Harold, who is the guitar player in Negative Approach, he makes a tea every day that includes sliced ginger.
Very good for you.
Some crushed lemon, honey, and hot water.
Yeah.
Now, I also drink what is called throat coat.
Yeah.
Which has anise, it has slippery elm, and it's something you can't drink a lot of it because it makes you jittery.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also try to warm up. I play in a band with a guitar player who studied at Juilliard.
Yeah.
Who studied acting at Juilliard. And they actually brought in vocal coaches. And what he learned was all of these different warm-up techniques where you go...
Yeah.
You go up and down, and you've got to be standing. And then he taught me about the muscles on the side of your face,
relaxing everything. Yeah.
Just rubbing it and getting it warmed up, and it feels really good. And then there's one where you kind of lock your fingers in place and moving them around. And then there's another one where you take your tongue. Normally, I would just go.
Yeah.
Try to stretch the tongue as far out as I can. But the exercise that he taught me was just keeping your tongue in your mouth and pushing it against your lower front teeth.
Gotcha. Okay.
And normally you want to try to do all of this stuff for at least half an hour before you go on stage.
Yeah. Now, do you still at the age of 68, do you still like going out there touring? And there's a second part to this. Are you somebody who's ever thought about, hey, I don't want to be doing this still out on the road at a certain age? Like, does retirement enter into your mind at all? Or are you kind of a, I'm going to do this till the wheels fall off type guy?
That's my program.
Yeah.
I got to do this because there's certain nights where it's just a ton of fun, and there's certain nights when it's just a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And all of that comes with the territory.
Yep.
And it has to be like that. All of the good evens out all of the bad.
Right.
When you have all of the hurry up and wait, like you drive for 6 hours to get there to unload and do a sound check, and then you've got another 3 or 4 hours waiting around to play.
Right.
In that time, I need to get something to eat, I need to get out, and I need to walk around just to see the environment, just to see where we're at, just to see whatever civilization is there. I'm not out looking for cathedrals and churches and any historical sites, because a lot of that stuff just bores me to tears.
Yeah.
Like on this last European run, we went to Katowice, Poland. And one of the famous German death camps is right around that area. And Dmitri, who's Polish, who has been there, said, "You want to go? You know, you're Jewish. This is part of your history. You want to go?" And it's like, no, I don't want to go. I've seen the pictures in the books. I don't need to be there. What am I gonna feel the spirits? Am I gonna pick up the bad vibe?
Right. This is not generally looked at something that makes Jewish people very happy.
Well, as it turns out, we played this festival in Poland, and the site is this big park that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, why would I want to go anywhere else?
Right. You're surrounded by it already. Yeah.
Surrounded by all of these beautiful trees and all of the grass, and here's a restaurant on the site. And
yeah.
You know?
Now, one thing I want to ask you about, and I really enjoyed your book, My Damage: Story of a Punk Rock Survivor. And I know this came out back in 2016, so it's been out for a while, and I would certainly implore people to go check it out. There's so many rock biographies and memoirs out there, but this one is truly good, and I think a lot of it is because of how candid you are, how upfront you are about the trials, tribulations, struggles. You know, I mean, just you're so candid about everything in your life. What was the impetus for that book, though? Was that something you wanted to do, or did somebody approach you and say, "Keith, you got a great book in you"?
It was a combination of both of those.
Okay.
I had already started writing stories because I knew that I was going to write a book.
Yeah.
I have so many stories to tell. It would be
how early on in your journey do you know I'm going to eventually write a book? I'm going to have fucking stories. Years ago?
Well, my book has been out, I think, for about 6 years.
Yeah, 2016. Yep.
And I think I had started writing stories for the book maybe 4 or 5 years before that.
Okay.
And then a lot of my friends had been writing books. And my booking agent said, "You need to write a book. I'm going to give you the info for the people you need to talk to."
Okay.
And I ended up talking to a guy named Ben Schaefer. And he was totally into it. He had just got through putting out a Grateful Dead book. He'd put out a book about the rock bands in Detroit, MC5 and Ted Nugent and Iggy and the Stooges and SRC and a handful of others. And he said, "Let's have a meeting." And we have a meeting, and Jim Ruland, he has Jim Ruland with him, who he said, "You could have Jim Ruland as your ghostwriter." And I immediately shot that down, and I said, Jim Ruland has to get credit where credit is due because of the work that he's going to put into this. Because the way that it worked is Jim Ruland would come up from San Diego. That's like a 2-hour, 2.5, sometimes 3-hour drive.
Right.
We would be sitting in my living room, and we would just be talking, and he would ask me questions, and I'd answer the questions with long, lengthy answers. And he was recording all of it. He was writing down the date, taking notes about a particular session. I believe we did about 70 hours. I think it was like 70 hours of these recordings. And he basically streamlined it. He edited it and turned it into a fast-paced book.
Yeah.
The book takes 9 hours to read.
Yep.
Unless you're slow and you're just taking your time and taking it all in. And it did so well that the book company had Ben Schaefer come back to me and ask me if I wanted to write a second book. And I went to Jim Ruland, and I said, Jim, I've been asked to do a second book. Are you interested in doing it? He said, Keith, of course I'm interested in doing it because your book allowed me to write the Bad Religion book that he wrote.
Yep.
And he wrote a book about SST records.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a really great job without being able to talk with Greg Ginn, getting back to Greg Ginn.
Yep.
Ginn's not talking to anybody.
Yep.
Greg Ginn doesn't want to help anybody out. So I said, Jim, let's get together and start going on about some ideas as to what's going to happen with this next book. And he said, Keith, it's really easy. You know, you're going out on all of these circle jerk shows. Your band Off has a new record that took you 8 years to put together.
Yep.
You've got a movie. We have a movie. Off has a movie.
Yep.
That coincides with our album, and we've already shot it. I believe all of the extra work that needed to be done is done, and now it's just a matter of finding somebody to take it and get it out to the world.
Yep.
Whether it be Netflix or Hulu or HBO or Showtime, or
a lot of options. Yeah.
Or if one of the major movie companies picks it up and wants to put it in all of the movie theaters. We're just playing all of that by ear.
Yeah.
So there will be a second book, and Jim and I actually had started writing stories.
Yeah.
For it.
That's great. That's great news. And when you wrote the first book, did you find it to be a cathartic process? Or when you bare your soul like that, did you find it? Because one of my favorite books in the last couple of years is by one of my favorite vocalists. Got his picture back here, the late, great Mark Lanigan, who I absolutely love, who wrote a fantastic memoir. But I saw him on a podcast. You did the same one with Joseph Arthur. And I heard him on there talking about, how painstaking it was to really have to dredge up a lot of the past history, though. It's kind of like a bloodletting. There's a lot of uncomfortable moments, burning a lot of bridges, throwing a lot of people under the bus. Did you find it cathartic, or did you find it, this is a lot of shit to have to slog through, and it's uncomfortable?
I was never uncomfortable.
Okay.
I look at it as in my first book, I tell the story of my sobriety.
Yep.
Where I've started to make amends. I was making amends even before I was going to meetings, before I read the big blue book.
Yep.
It was just, if you're a good person and you've got a good soul and you're trying to get to the bottom of, trying to find reasons for some of the stuff that you did.
Sure.
It would just be part of a natural progression.
Yep.
Where it's like, Mom, I need to apologize to you for all of the money that I swiped out of your purse.
Yep. Yep.
That kind of thing.
Right.
To some of my girlfriends, where it's like, I need to apologize to you because I was just a horrible boyfriend.
Yeah.
It was like, I had a couple of those scenarios. But the biggest hurdle for me was the amend that I needed to make to my dad.
Okay.
And I tell the story in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's on a beautiful night, beautiful summertime night, in a beautiful setting, an outdoor setting. And it's just he and I sitting on a bench that's been built around a big tree that's growing in the backyard.
Yep.
It's the Sportsman's Lodge over on Ventura Boulevard over in Studio City, I believe. It's like, Dad, I have something that I have to talk to you about, because we never talked.
Yeah.
We were never father and son. It was always, I don't like your friends. How much money do you have in your bank account? How are you doing in school? Those kind of questions, not what's the last great movie you've seen, or
right.
What are you reading? You have any magazine subscriptions? I never see you with any girls. Are you going out with any girls?
Right.
Nothing,
right.
Never anything like that.
More critique and not so much of a vested interest.
Right. Like, I need to give you some advice here. You're doing this wrong. You need to do it this way. There's never any of that stuff. So we're having this conversation. Dad, I believe I embezzled something like $70,000 from the business. And he looked at me. He wasn't.
Right, hold on. I lost your audio there for a minute.
The first thing he said is,
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. He wasn't really affected by what I was saying. Like, he wasn't mad at me.
Right.
He wasn't upset. He said, well, it was your business too.
Right.
I didn't start this business just for myself.
Right.
Your mom worked there for a while. You started working there when you were 11 years old. So I can't be upset about any of that. Then he looked me in the eyes and he said, I owe you an apology for not being a good dad.
Wow.
And I was just like dumbfounded, like that was not supposed to happen.
That's big. Yeah.
But it was the book. The book was like taking all of the rubble and placing it off to the side and being able to breathe easier, and like just telling everything that I needed to tell.
Right.
And the same thing with this conversation with my dad. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
There was somebody wrote that book, The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Yeah.
And it's like you make these amends, and it just lifted this big weight off of me.
Yeah. I get that.
Then to have my dad say, you don't owe me any apologies, because I was never a father to you.
Yeah.
We were never father and son.
Yeah.
I mean, he did teach me how to hit a baseball, and he did teach me how to scoop up a ground ball and throw it to first base.
Yeah.
But that was it.
Yeah. And I want to ask your opinion because you are out there traveling so much, and that's a great story. I'm glad you got that closure. I had a very similar experience with my father before he passed too, where we buried the hatchet on a lot of stuff, and that is very cathartic. You know, what I mean, especially like when you clear the air with both sides. So you know, that's a fantastic moment. I love hearing that. I think my viewers will too. I mean, that's a very touching moment. And again, I implore people to go and read the book. It's one of the more honest rock memoirs that are out there. But when you think of what you guys were doing in the early embryonic stages of Black Flag, you guys were obviously one of the first bands that were really do it yourself, really hustling, really grinding. That punk rock ethos, you know, that you guys were living by, does that still exist in today's world with these platforms and all this stuff, or can that not exist? Was that like a snapshot in time? You know, are bands still grinding and hustling and, you know, able to do that now in this era?
A lot of bands have to.
Yeah.
It's just part of survival. It's like we know that we're not going to get signed by a major label and have all of their marketing people and all of their advertising people and all of their promotion people and their publicists and, you know, being in all of these magazines and, oh, you're going to be on Conan O'Brien or you're going to be on Late Night with David Letterman or any of that stuff. We did not have any of that. So it was just a matter of survival. Right. And when you're placed in these situations, you just have to do the best that you can. You know, what happened with us was we came from where you had to print a flyer and hand it to somebody and have them have it in their hand so they could look at it to know that you're playing 2 weeks from tonight. Right. You know, and then get on the telephone and call 10 of your friends. Right. And at the end of each conversation with your 10 friends, you say, could you call a few of your friends? Right. There was no there was no blackflag.com to go find out your tour dates. Yeah. But so when you look back, and there's been so many great albums, and the word seminal gets thrown around so much. But do you look at any of your work? You know, and you are such a humble guy, but do you look at like a Nervous Breakdown or an album like Group Sex, or, you know, do you look at any of them and say, you know, I've been a part of some seminal albums, some important albums, you know, in my genre or in rock music in general? Well, I know that those records are very, very, very important to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I know that those records, for a lot of people, are some of the most horrible songs horrible music that they've ever heard. You know, so it just all comes with the territory. Right. I do realize that in Black Flag, we were part of the spearhead that created a genre called hardcore punk rock. Yep. And some of those bands in the very beginning are some of the greatest bands of the genre. The Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Middle Class, DOA. Yeah. Dead Kennedys. That music touched a lot of people. Yes. I don't, you know, it would be really easy to sit around and go, what if, you know, what if the music was friendlier? You know, how punk turned into punk pop, and then it turned into emo. Yeah. And, you know, I could nitpick and get all bummed out. It's like getting back to the friendship with Greg Ginn and how it deteriorated. I could fill my head with all of these negative thoughts like, well, why did Green Day get so big? And, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And it's just, can't be bothered with that. I've got things going on that, I'm extremely fortunate. It's like, certain people reach a certain age and everything ends. It's like, okay, let's get in the mobile home and go to do a tour of all of the KOA campsites.
Yeah.
We're both retired. Let's go out and see America.
Right.
It's like, well, you've waited until the end of your lives to do this. We've been doing it all our lives.
Right.
We chose a different path. So my reward isn't a house on the hill or a palace where, every weekend there's a barbecue and,
you're rolling around in piles of money.
In fact, we still have our health. Well, we still have our health. We're still capable of doing what we were doing before. And for me, the big payoff is I just spent a week and a half over in Europe.
Yeah.
Went to some amazing cities.
Yeah.
Granted, like I said earlier, I'm not there to be a tourist. I'm not there. I need to go to the church or the cathedral or there are the gargoyles or, I'll go to a museum here and there.
Right.
I'm not interested in all of that stuff.
Right.
But you have the opportunity to travel.
Right.
And our reward is now we're playing festivals.
Right.
Big music festivals.
Yeah.
There's a festival called Primavera, which at one time was Barcelona. And then it expanded to Madrid. And then it expanded to Porto, Portugal. And then they're now doing shows. They're doing festivals in South America. The guy who started Primavera, his favorite band is Off. And when we get paid compliments like that, somebody that's listening to as much music as he's listening to and, putting together all of these lineups. Now, granted, he has probably 10 other people that work with him on these lineups.
Right. But he's a guy with his ear to the pavement. He is. Yeah.
When we get paid a compliment like that, that makes it all worthwhile.
Sure.
And then we not only do we get asked to play the 3 Primaveras in the Mediterranean and on the Atlantic coast in Europe, but we get asked to play Bogota, Colombia, and Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and that's the reward.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, when I was talking vocalists before, you politely corrected me on the Ron and on overlooking Ron and Dez. So another important guy in the Black Flag camp that I would like to bring up and ask where you stand with him right now is Chuck, the great Chuck Dukowski. Where are you in life with Chuck?
When I walked away from Black Flag, and I walked away right at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Because Greg Ginn was trying to figure out a way to kick me out of the band.
Yeah.
And he was tongue-tied and his brain was twisted because I'm one of the founding members.
Right.
We wouldn't be this far if I hadn't been a part of it.
Right.
And I'm not trying to brag, and I'm not trying to have my ego, sandblasted and filled with air and all of that kind of stuff. But I quit because I had grown tired of all of the arguments. I had grown tired of all of the rehearsals, and we were rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and trying to learn new songs. And it's like, why are we trying to learn new songs? We're not playing any shows.
Right.
And they got fed up with my mentality. And so I quit. And I would later, one of the reasons I quit was because of Chuck Dukowski.
Okay.
See, when Chuck Dukowski joined the band, he said, we're going to start rehearsing every night. We're going to become a real band.
Yeah.
So he was the one that was pretty much responsible for the turnaround of the band.
Okay.
The new mentality of the band.
Right. Right.
Now, and I was told when I quit, like maybe that same week before I quit, that we had no shows coming up.
Right.
I quit, and they played the first show with Ron Reyes like a week and a half, 2 weeks later. I would later run into Robo, and Robo said, Keith, the band completely changed after you left. It was no fun anymore.
Yep.
You were a fun guy.
Yep.
I loved being in that band with you, and the band completely changed. And for me, it wasn't a change for the better.
Right.
And I would later on hook up with Chuck Dukowski because we did a thing with a couple of our friends who were in a band called No Age.
Okay.
And we played, I want to say, 8 songs with them over here in MacArthur Park. There were 3,000 kids that went ape shit when Chuck and I came out on stage. The place just, the whole vibe of the place just completely blew up.
I can imagine.
Where the police stepped back. They said that we're not going to be able to control this. We'll just let the security deal with it.
Yeah.
And that guy in the wheelchair, when they pushed him through the crowd.
Yeah. Yep.
And he landed gently on the front of the stage.
Yeah.
He said, just stay right there. We're going to play this show for you.
Yeah.
And Chuck and I had started conversing again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on much friendlier terms because when I left Black Flag, I did not like Chuck Dukowski.
Yeah.
And like I said, he was one of the reasons why I left.
Yeah.
And doing Flag with Dez and Billy Stevenson playing drums and Stephen Egerton playing guitar, Chuck and I became even friendlier. So we have a good friendship. Chuck would tell me, Keith, Greg wanted to fire you, but couldn't figure out a way to fire you when you quit.
Yeah. So in essence, Chuck kind of became the scapegoat. A driving force to kind of root you out of there.
No, because I didn't like him, but I didn't like the fact that we were rehearsing as much as we were rehearsing.
Yeah.
And there was nothing going on. We weren't playing live shows.
Right. Right. Now with Off, you just put out an album in 2022, Free LSD. So new music on the horizon, and what kind of pace are you working at these days? Obviously, it seems like the music business has changed so much with the streaming platforms and people putting out singles and EPs. And it really seems like people are consumed with, I got to keep my name out there. I got to stay relevant. People are going to forget. You put out an album in 2022. How fast do you think about following it up? Or at this stage, do you just think, we'll put something out when we put it out?
Well, I had explained earlier that we have a movie that
Yep.
is based on the album, just like the album is based on the movie.
Yep. Which is awesome.
The movie is coming out next year.
Okay.
And what we're doing, we're playing shows in the meantime. It's not like we're just sitting around.
Right.
We're playing shows in the meantime. And what we're doing is we're waiting to see what happens with the movie.
Okay.
A perfect example of this, there's a band called Sparks.
Okay.
And they've been around for quite a while.
Yep.
And there was a point in time, we have the El Rey Theater over here in the Wilshire district, where all of the Jewish people live. And it's a really great venue. They played there. It was half filled, which means there were like 450, maybe 500 people there.
Right.
They were at a period in their careers where they weren't selling venues. They were having a hard time getting people to come and see them. And they put out that documentary. One of my good friends plays guitar in their band. And he explained to Dimitri, we're playing this festival with you guys. We just played in front of 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And we're doing a European tour, then we're doing a tour of Japan, and then we're going to come back and we're probably going to be playing a bunch of shows in the United States. He said the Sparks documentary came out and changed it flipped their world upside down.
Yeah.
To where now they're playing, they played the Primavera, the 3 Primavera festivals, and they were probably in the major cities in Barcelona and Madrid, probably playing to a minimum 20,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah, they turn out over in those other countries, man. They really love their music and the whole festival season over there. The European audiences really, really, really get it. Not to impugn American audiences. I mean, I'm part of that American audience, but the European audience is really so enthusiastic, and it just really seems like their festivals really go off without a hitch. They really are there to celebrate the music.
Great festivals.
Yeah. Awesome festivals. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't, I don't want to gloss over, obviously, a band like the Circle Jerks. We've talked so much about Black Flag. I think people would be curious to know, you start this phenomenal band coming out of Black Flag. You roll right into a great band like the Circle Jerks with Greg Hetson. Where do you stand with the Circle Jerk fellas? Particularly Greg?
Well, we've actually been playing a few festivals.
Great.
We've been doing quite a bit of touring. We've got more shows coming up. We're going to be doing string of dates through the South with TSOL and Nick Approach. Negative Approach, we take Negative Approach out with as much as we can because they're a great band.
Yes.
And I mean, they're brutal. They are relentless. They're out for blood.
Yeah.
They want to rip everybody's faces off. And they're the nicest guys you're ever going to meet.
Yeah.
And they love us. We love them. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
We will also be playing a few string of dates with the Descendants, who are also our friends, and Billy and Milo are South Bay guys, which is where I spent about 24 years of my life.
Okay.
So I've known these guys. I've known Billy since he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So the Circle Jerks were playing live shows. And in this process, we've become friends again, because there was a point in time where we wouldn't talk to each other. I hated them.
Yeah.
They did something to me that was really uncool.
Right.
And I'm over it.
Yeah.
And I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm finding is that people ask, well, how do you do it? How do you continue doing this? Each night is a hurdle to get over, because of the physicality.
Right.
And I'm at an age where I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Right.
So I'm going to do as much of this as I can up to that point when I'm not able to do it anymore. I earned the right to be able to do this.
Absolutely.
We are going to get in a room and we're going to start throwing some ideas at each other to see what we can come up with if we're going to be able to create new songs for a new record.
That's big news. That's big news. Yeah.
But I can't tell you how soon that's going to happen.
Fair enough. Yep.
Because I have my off band and I have that scenario.
Right.
And I've told the Circle Jerks people, the guys in the band, the people that work for us, our booking agent, that if off gets offered something, I'm off with off.
Yeah.
I'm doing off because of the Circle Jerks.
Right. Right. It's a raving endorsement when a guy like Anthony Kiedis is out there. I feel like for the better part of the last couple of years, I haven't seen Anthony Kiedis without an off cap on. He's like a walking billboard for you guys.
And that's when the Chinese bootleggers make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I guess they do, yeah. I mean, yeah. Does Anthony get a kickback or a piece of this off stuff? I mean, he's a raving endorsement for you guys at this point.
No, but we our situation with the Red Hot Chili Peppers is that they asked us to tour with them.
Yes.
And we couldn't do it. We had certain things that were going on, and it was like at a certain period of time where we can't do that. We would love to. We played with them over here at Staples Center, which is where the Lakers and the Clippers and the LA Kings play.
Yep. Big building.
And the Sparks. Speaking of Sparks, the LA Sparks, the female basketball team. And Taylor Swift's played there.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen.
Big building.
We opened for the Chili Peppers, and it was kind of odd. It was weird. It was I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know how to explain it.
Is it because it is because you particularly feel uncomfortable on a big stage like that? Do you like the smaller, intimate setting?
I like smaller settings.
Yeah.
I like being able to look people in the eye, or eyes, plural.
Yeah.
But it comes with the territory. You get offered the opportunity to play in a place like that with your friends. You do it. And who cares about the repercussions? Well, that's not punk rock.
Right.
You're sellouts.
Right.
Like, you know what? Take all that garbage and turn on your garbage disposal and shove it right in the garbage disposal.
Yeah. You have to take the opportunities when they come. I mean, I know from doing this podcast, talking to so many musicians on here that, and especially, with album sales, dwindling down, the record labels pretty much non-existent anymore, contracts. I mean, it is very feast or famine out there. It's very tough. The opportunities that come, you probably have to seize them.
If you're smart.
Yeah.
There's some people that would overthink a situation like that and say no.
Right. because of those reasons. Oh, how am I going to look? How's this going to appear? Is this punk rock enough, as you said?
What are people going to think of me?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's probably not a way of thinking that's very conducive to being successful in today's rock and roll world. It's very tough.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it if you have the chance to. That's good advice for young bands out there too. Because you're not going to get those opportunities that existed back in the 70s and 80s when someone would come and see your band and say, "I like you guys. I want to sign you. I want to put you on a big airplane. We want to put you in tours and in magazines," as you said earlier. Those days are dead and gone.
Live legs.
Yeah.
Go out and sell compact discs and vinyl and T-shirts.
Yeah, that really has become the way now. Really going out and supporting live music and supporting merchandise and stuff like that, and really getting out there and really being called on the carpet now to really test your mettle and really be a true fan. I mean, this is how you guys make a living, and it saddens me to hear musical artists come on here who I'll have somebody pop up on a screen who is a legend to me, maybe in a thrash band or a metal band or a band that I've loved for years. And then all of a sudden we'll be talking and I'll hear them mentioning a day job. And I guess in my own naive way of thinking, I will think like, day job, and I guess maybe I'm not imagining them in some ivory tower somewhere, but I'm thinking, I've been listening to you my whole life. You've got to be financially good, and sometimes it's not the case. More often than not, it's not the case.
Yes. Don't give up your day job.
Yeah. Don't give up your day job. You're right.
And I've had hundreds of them.
Yeah. But listen, it's going on over an hour and a half talking to you. I so much appreciate the time, man. This has been a great conversation. Out of 150 some odd episodes, this has been a real highlight for me, man. A pleasure and honor, and I can't thank you enough for doing it, man. And I do hope we can stay in touch and we can do this again sometime down the road when something is cooking and you got a new album coming out or something going on. I would love to talk to you again, man. You're such an interesting guy, full of so much energy. I knew this would be a great conversation. Been looking forward to it at work all day, and it didn't disappoint. I've loved talking to you every second of this.
Well, it's been a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And when I put the episode up, I don't know if you're a social media guy, but I'll send you a link to it. And if you're a sharing type of guy or you want to put it up here or there, please feel free. But at the very least, I'll send it to you and, do with it what you will.
Right on.
I appreciate you, Keith. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I salute you, man. Thank you. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you. Take care of yourself. You look fantastic. You sound fantastic. And I can't wait for what's coming next from Off or the Circle Jerks or whatever it is that you're going to thrust upon us. I'm locked in and always looking forward to it, man. Love the book. Love everything that you put your thumbprint on, man. Really.
Thank you
from the bottom of my heart.
Time.
Yeah. I appreciate you, Keith. Thank
Cheers.
you. Talk to you soon, buddy. All right. Later. Cheers. Now we're going to see if Keith knows how to log out of the room. There he goes. Folks, that right there is a bona fide legend. If I can just close this episode up here by saying that right there is punk rock hardcore royalty. He's a very humble guy, but I will give him his flowers. Keith Morris, the originator, the OG, the godfather of Black Flag, and the Circle Jerks, numerous other projects. As you heard, he's pinch hitted for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, the guy is a staple, a fixture, a stalwart, all those things in that punk rock, hardcore, just music world in general. And now, of course, it is Off. That's the musical project that seems to have all of his energy being poured into it, and they are fucking awesome. That's Off, OFF, all caps with a fucking exclamation point at the end of it. And I can't say enough good things about them. Fantastic band. 2022 was the last album, Free LSD, based on a lot of conspiracy theories, but just a fantastic fucking album. And of course, go back and do your fucking homework for my viewers out there. Go back, dive into the past, check out Nervous Breakdown by Black Flag, dive into the Circle of Jerks stuff, do your fucking homework, go back in time, check out the good shit that got us all here where we are now and propelled so many of these bands that we're currently listening to. They wouldn't be shit without, especially in the punk hardcore world, without guys like Keith, without bands like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and Off. I mean, you know, he's continuing that legacy right now. And also, please go out and check out his book that he put out in 2016, My Damage, Story of a Punk Rock Survivor. Such great fucking stories. I have the audio version, which, because of my fucked up peepers here, reading has gotten a little more difficult in my older age, but beautifully narrated. Great fucking stories. Just, I mean, can't say enough about it. Keith Morris really is a punk rock survivor. Been to hell and back and has the scars to prove it, man. And it's a life that has truly been fucking lived to the fullest. That was a real honor. That was a real treat. That was the great Keith Morris. I don't need to say nothing else. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. And remember, folks, until we get together and we do this thing again, and we will do it again, please remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.